Well, welcome back,
So,
folks.
yeah, it's been good.
As it was called, I said it, and obviously I didn't feel the win.
You have it. You have it.
Mike, you can't hear me? Oh, he signed back off again. All right, well, we'll get Mike back. It looks like he had a little bit of a difficulty with his with the hearing. So hopefully Mike will come back. My producer's giving me a thumbs up that the audio is coming through, so hopefully he'll sign back in here with us shortly. But okay, so as told before the game started, I didn't feel the win. I didn't feel the win. I did not feel the win. It was ridiculous to say the least. Eagles finish up with a tie.
Is it a 5G?
And it gets more embarrassing for the Eagles. Carson Wentz was still not drive in this game, but I can say that I can give him all the kudos in the world. And if you guys didn't see, pretty impressive. Of course, we're gonna have Mark Grote on for later on, but Nick Foles comes back and wins the game for the Bears. So Wentz, again, we tied into a lot of money. This Dallas Goedert that went out. D. Jackson went out. Fletcher Cox, not Fletcher Cox, sorry, Jason Peters. He was limping off because of his left leg. It was set. Ungodly awful with this team. Defense, offense, there's plenty of things go around, and I would love to hear what between Carson Wentz and Doug Peters is going to say, because all I know is I'm going to hear it again. So is everyone else that I'm done
I'm here.
Producer saying that the noise.
Here. Over there.
Yeah, apparently, I guess, I don't know, maybe did they turn the audio back up?
No, it's right. Guys, can you hear me better?
Yeah, I can hear you. So apparently, obviously, it's we're going to hear over and over and over again. When it comes down to Doug, the excuses are going to be, we need to do better. Carson Wentz, it starts with me. How many times am I going to say it starts with me? I see the comments. I'm going to get the comments here very shortly, but it was bad. 5 sacks. Again, another interception. Sanders probably light in the game. 18 carries for 95 yards. I don't know. It's so bad. It really is horrible.
Your wife is watching.
Whoever the Facebook user is, this unfreaking real shit in my head. So true. So true. The other thing is, we're on the chat over your voice. We're trying to fix that, so we're getting there. I understand what you're saying. Are we still having audio issues? Because I don't understand what's going on here.
I can hear you.
Are we having audio issues? I guess somebody that just fucking is turning it out or sounding muffled. I'm not too sure. If everyone can hear it, someone put a comment.
I hear you.
Can you guys hear us? All right. Hopefully, Mike will come back on here shortly. Apparently, there's maybe the feed down there at Nick's is not that well, because I'm sorry if people couldn't hear me. Sometimes just the way it works. But again, we have, in case you guys had missed it. In case you guys had missed it, obviously Carson Wentz threw an interception. He's not looking too well. Here comes Mike again. Let's see.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Let me see.
There's really not much to say. Just a flat out disgrace.
All right, well, listen, hopefully everybody can hear us. If you can't hear us, do me a favor, can you just turn on your closed captioning? Unfortunately, the closed caption doesn't work on my end, so we're trying to get the audio fixed. I think because obviously with being out at the bar, sometimes the speaker being overhead will come in through the feed on the mic. Okay, we're getting Mike,
Say again?
can you hear me?
Yeah, sort of.
All right. Sorry, guys. We're trying to get the hopefully everyone can hear. I don't know if I'm going to speak up louder. I'm not too sure. I'm in my home studio. I'm not sure what's going on. I'm going to put the comments up there. I have no idea. I feel like I got a screen.
I'm here.
I don't know. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I don't know what the point. Hopefully everyone can hear me. There could be noise in the background. I got to speak up. Hopefully everyone can hear what I'm saying. A lot louder than what I normally do. Again, we're going to go back to Mike Sherman's comment here. Kiss your sister, everyone, a 23-23 tie. It was ridiculous. I don't,
I can hear you.
I don't know. We'll get the audio thing here situated, straightened out. Sorry, everybody. This is probably the worst first post game ever because the audio's down. I don't know what else to say. It's frustrating with the audio. It's frustrating with the. Mike says, everyone. Tom's saying I'm watching. Everyone's coming here. Kristen, they just work out. I'm just certain again. Here in just, if you have
was out there and that's a great job by the Seattle defense. Nowhere to go. That's great work.
Mike comes back and says, as much as Peterson loves to gamble, I am shocked that he didn't go for 2-point conversion. Also shocked that he did not go for the 64-yard field goal. Well, given the fact the way the Eagles ended up this game today, Mike, we had discussed it, and yeah, I probably would have gone for it instead of going for the tie. Unfortunately, the lack of confidence with this team and the organization altogether, it wouldn't have proven anything. So no matter which way you look at it, it just would have been bad overall. I mean, they could have gone for it. Yes, we all know this. Would they have made it? I have no idea, unfortunately. But it's just overall in general, it was just bad. Kristen came back on. She said, I can hear you. I can hear both of you. So hopefully Mike will come back on back here shortly. So thank you, Kristen, for letting us know that you can hear us. So hopefully he will come back on. And by the way, hi, Kristen. That's my co-host's wife. So thanks again for listening in. So basically what it comes down to is we're going to hear the excuses by all sides. From Jim Schwartz, his defense, from Doug Peterson in the overall game, from Carson Wentz. It's going to be, we thought last week the callers were bad. This week will be 10 times worse because the Eagles can't seem to put, again, a good product on the field. And it was all the way across the board. From the running game to the passing game to your safeties, your nickels, you name it. It was just all around. At the very end, it looked like the Eagles were actually going to pull it off because it was a great stop by the Eagles to at least, have Cincinnati back at the 4 to 5 yard line and a golden opportunity to kick the field goal. But then you get the false start. You don't go for a 64-yard field goal attempt. And I'm pretty sure Jake, the state, Elliott Farm here could have made it. But again, it is just beyond ridiculous what's going on with this team. There's going to have to be a lot of things to be discussed when the time goes. And I'm not too sure exactly what it's going to end up being. The Facebook user says that Doug has lost the edge and it's costing us. It's costing us. Rick in Kansas City. Rick, thank you so much for your comment. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for watching for KC. KC also, I believe, plays Ravens this afternoon. I'll take a look around the NFL here shortly to give you guys the updated scores. Tom says a complete breakdown of the game, and it's got true. A complete breakdown today. It's just it's frustrating. My thing is, it's just. It is just bad altogether. Coming here, Mike says that I have to do it was tight. I think
There's nothing to say about this game. It was a flat out goddamn disgrace. It's a joke. Like, heads on a roll. I mean, seriously. They're, the quarterback, the GM, and the head coach ought to all be accountable. It's a disgrace.
That's the problem is, you want to see, unfortunately, for everybody to go.
No.
Hopefully, I don't know what's going to happen. And again, it's really.
Got the whole place to spread out.
There's not to build up any kind of all over Doug this week. Tomorrow, of course, with Angelo Cataldi in the morning, and it'll be interesting to see what Angelo says. Mike says he put and Major one. Mike, coming up. I have no idea. Mike, I know you want to vent because it is what it is. It's 23-23.
There's nothing to say. I mean,
it was just bad.
It's disgrace. I mean, right now, I have nothing to say about this game. This is probably the worst game probably played in 5-6 goddamn years.
That's because Mike says forget about Angel. I'm more interested in hearing what you guys have to say. And
there's nothing to say.
No, it's
flat out joke.
You look back and
goddamn disgrace. That's what it is.
We're going because we're going back. You look at we started making progress, but you're looking at 2013, 2014. We rebuilding comes in. And gone and I don't think it's true. 90 year professional broadcasters have it is just and I know we talked to Jared Gunn earlier this week. I didn't for over $100 million. Who says what this week when it comes down to him and practice, and that it's going to look great. is this going to be the worst thing? I don't know.
There's no excuse.
I don't know what else to say. Honest to God.
There's nothing to say. I mean, somebody's got to take the fall somewhere. It's suicide. There is no. I'm lost for words with this shit. I'm like mortified. I mean, talking about it, it's like, to me, it's like, what's the point? Because I don't even want to hear you're 2-1. You're 0-3. Somebody in the room ought to be taking names and numbers because it's a disgrace.
That's going to be
throwing heads.
That's going to be the only major issue.
There's no goddamn excuse. Doug and his. You know what? It's hard for me to even. This is like. It's like. Sorry.
No, it's all right, Mike. I'm gonna mute your mic here. I'm going to mute your mic here for a second because apparently the audio feedback is coming from your end. I guess it's the overhead speakers apparently that's coming through. So I'm going to mute your mic here for a quick second. So Mike obviously he's fired up, and Mike he's fired up, and I know a lot of Eagles fans are going to be fired up. So I'm trying to put it as politely as I possibly can, but. Another comment here from Tom is this the birth of Joe Burrow era in Cincinnati? Tom, no offense, and right now because of the three teams that they have played makes Joe Burrow look good, but it's just not. All right, you guys, I'm sorry. This has been a travesty of a post-game show. I'm hoping things will get better here with the audio and everything else. This is just trying to get frustrated, but it's just it doesn't sound good. I'm gonna bring up Mike's. I'm gonna bring Mike back with his audio. Hopefully, it sounds better. I apologize because I don't know exactly what's going on with the audio here. So I'm gonna bring Mike back.
I think it's the audio on my end because sort of kind of had an accident earlier and something spilled into my laptop. So that's what I think I'm more furious about that than the game right now. So bear with me.
Yeah, it's big. Give me a second. Let me check in with the producer and see how the audio sounds now.
I can hear you better from where I'm at now.
All right, I'm waiting for confirmation here.
Can you hear me?
Better, worse?
It sounds fine to me on my end. I don't know if you can hear me.
Right, no, producer says it's better. What my producer is trying to do here, she's trying to go back and forth with me, and she's giving me the thumbs up, the thumbs down. It doesn't sound great, so she's trying to help me out. Unfortunately, it's frustrating. Not getting frustrated with her. It's just frustrating because unfortunately the audios when it comes through the bars and the same issue that I had over at Tampa Joe's. If there's a speaker nearby, it trumps everything that was trying to be said. So that's the only tough part.
That's why I had to move.
Yeah.
Because talking about this slop is like you might as well watch paint dry on a goddamn wall. I think I probably should have spent 3 hours watching. Should have just painted a goddamn room or something. If they're watching this debacle, it's a disgrace. There ain't no excuse for it. Heads should roll.
No, it should, and again, now I'm trying to get my voice simmered back down here a little bit. But
honestly, I'd walk out of this place right now, and I'd be like, "Let's chat next week." Because if I was in that locker room, and I was a veteran like Zach Ertz, I'd probably lose my goddamn head right now. And I'd get in that quarterback's face, I'd get in that goddamn head coach's face, and take it from there. Because I would lay into both of them.
And the only,
I would
again,
screw them up.
the only, the bad part is again, Doug is going to look at this as if it's not all his fault. He's also going to defend Carson Wentz until the end of the earth because that's the way Doug has been doing it. Doug doesn't understand it right now, and he could be on the clock. Who knows? No one knows exactly what's going to end up happening. Once they get together tonight, who knows if Jeffrey Lurie pulls them into the office? All we know is that obviously without the fans in the stands, the boo factor all over the city has got to be going absolutely nuts. I mean, 3 games, 3 weeks, and the outcome is the same. And now we're 0-2, and I hate in football that you can finish the game as a tie. I was just telling you before we came back on air, to me, there should be a field goal challenge. If we're going to be doing that, you might as well play, what's the, in basketball, horse? You might as well do the same thing with the field goal challenge. If I kick it from the left and spin around once and I make the field goal, you got to do the same thing as well because it's embarrassing in the National Football League that they haven't changed the rules, then you finish up with a tie. I understand that they don't want to put in, an extra period, an extra quarter. I get that. But at this point, come on, we got to do something here to do things without ending in a tie. And the other thing is that you have 60 minutes of football to win the game, and it's just looking horrible. It's just that simple. It looks horrible. And there's nothing that anyone can say or do to change anyone's mind at this point because depending on what Doug says, and he is going to get hammered, it's going to be bad. Doug really needs to take a deep look. He needs to go home, figure out something, write in his journal, do whatever he needs to do to figure out how to write this ship because it does not get easier than this. It really doesn't. So,
at this point, I'm ready to go kidnap Andy Reid back from Kansas City and drop him here. You know what I could deal with? It starts with me. I got to do a better job. I got to put my players in better position. It starts with me. I'll take those press conferences back from 14 years of it right now than this Mickey Mouse shit. That's what it is.
But the problem is that you have to own up to it. That's the majority of the problem. You have to own up to what you're doing wrong. And again, it came down to and Doug Peterson is on right now with his post conference here. It does a press conference for that matter because it's after the game. But I can't play the audio for obvious copyright reasons. But I'll listen to it afterwards, and then I'll put out a quick blurb come tomorrow. But again, you have to own up to it, Mike. Doug has to look and he has to own up to everything that's going on. And to me, it doesn't seem that way. I mean, you look at, for example, Chicago, if I use them for a good deal, Matt Nagy decided, you know what, Trubisky wasn't the guy, bench him, bring in Nick Foles. Nick Foles saves the day again, just the way it was. And I know a lot of people that don't want to see, Nick Foles gone, and they decided on Carson Wentz. And I hope and pray that it was the right decision because next week it may not look so well again. It really won't. And I don't know what you do at that point. It's been said that you don't spend over $100 million. You can bring in a second-round draft pick and put him in the place. But so Nate Sudfeld doesn't start today. Jalen Hurts comes in basically for a run for a first down. I mean, I don't know. I'm really at a loss for words. It is just utter ridiculousness.
I'm going to say this. I think Jeff Lurie sees the ship just start sinking faster than the goddamn Titanic. He might just say bench Wentz and throw Jalen Hurts in. What the hell? What do you got to lose? You might as well salvage something unless you want to play for the number 1 pick.
Yeah, but the problem is that's the problem. The problem is you're going to go like come tomorrow. The Eagles obviously going to have their day off. Obviously, because after the game, I put them back in the pads and throw them back out there. But they're going to have the day off. Again, the conditioning factor, this factor, that factor, whichever factor do you want to use. So they're gonna have their day off. Doug, at that point, is he will have, as usual, his heart-to-heart to Carson Wentz. Carson, in return, this is, again, the Andy Reid, Doug McNabb show, and I talked about it at half. That's exactly what it is. When Andy didn't want to give up on Donovan, it was, it starts with me, I got to do better. Everything's going to be better. Don't worry about it, blah, 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 blah. And then the next week, the same thing. A 5-yard route, and he drops it to his ankles. A 10-yard route, and it's overhead. It's so bad. And plagued by injuries as well. I mean, I don't know. You are not going to convince me that come next week that this ship is going to be right. When I said earlier today that I felt like it wasn't going to be a win, that's exactly what it is. It's not a win. It's not a win. It's a stinging tie, and they look ridiculous.
Well, when Andy was the coach, things would turn around after a bad loss. He got everybody back on the same page. But Doug, I don't know what the hell Doug even knows what the hell he's doing at this point. I mean, Lord, I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to be straight gospel. Lurie ain't going to stand for it because he don't care what he has to pay Wentz. He's going to have him benched and throw Jalen Hurts right in the fire. I think Jalen Hurts will get thrown in the fire sooner than later if this debacle keeps up.
We're good.
Jeff Lurie's got his hands on it. Obviously, Mike Grote was fired. I mean, that has to speak volumes. I mean, Doug was the one that came out after Howie's press conference. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's going to be back. And then all of a sudden, they fired Mike Grote. And Doug was livid. And all of a sudden, you had Rich Scandarella here and Marty Morningwig, which, where the hell is this goddamn offense that they brought all these guys in? Lurie's not going to deal with it. I'm sorry. I'm going out on a limb and saying it. I'll break it before any news reporter in this goddamn city. That's the truth.
Well, Tom says it's a work in progress, and I don't know if that calms anybody down a little bit, but a work in progress, I don't know if a work in progress would be something that, this would be something, I guess, close to that, a work in progress. The only problem is you have to show progress, and the Eagles haven't showed progress.
There ain't no progress.
They went backwards. This game, you look at it from top to bottom, from your special teams, I mean, all the way across. There was no progress in this game. What was the only progress? You scored points. I mean, there's no progress. I mean,
It's a goddamn dog and pony show.
Right? You had the opportunity. You had the opportunity to win the game, and you jumped, knowing that you can win it. Jake would have been, golden. You could have won the game, even as sloppy as it was. And so, I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to take it on the NFL because I don't want to get too fired up, obviously. But we're going to take it on the NFL, and then shortly we will have the interview with Mark. But taking a look around the live scores and the games that have already been played, right now you have the Colts over the Jets 14-7, 11:24 left in the second. Chargers over the Panthers in the second. Lions over the Cardinals in the first with 4:18 to go, 3-0. The Bucks over the Broncos. And the Bucks, speaking of, Tom Brady has not fared well in Denver. So we'll see if he can actually get this win with the Buccaneers. It's 5:54 left in the first. Seahawks over the Cowboys, 9-3. They're also in the first with 6:17 to go. Finals, of course, Bears, Nick Foles looked absolutely fantastic with the win over the Falcons. The Falcons fall to 0-3 for the season. Bills come back to win it over the Rams. They go perfect for the season so far, 3-0 at 35-32. The Browns beat the college DC teams 34-20 to go 2-1. And you have the Titans who squeezed by one by the Vikings. The winless Vikings, 31-30. You're also looking at the Patriots who came back to beat the Raiders, 26-20. So they both go to 2-1. And the 49ers, even with their backup quarterback, comes in and wins it all 36-9 over the Giants, as they should have. And then you have the Steelers over the Texans, 28-21. And if you guys are out there, obviously, if you want to put your comments, please put your comments in there. We love to read them, just to get the crowd reaction and see exactly what's going on. Again, we apologize for the audio issues earlier on. It's kind of tough when you're in an environment where the speakers are blaring and we can't get stuff done. So, we try, and my producer, again, she was trying to help me out as much as possible. So I'm not mad at anyone. The only thing is that obviously it's tough when you're trying to get things going, and then by the time she's hearing the audio and I get it back, it's tough because there's a delay factor, about a 10-second delay. But I just don't know, again, what to say at this point. I mean, hopefully it'll get better from here. I don't know how it'll get better, but hopefully it will get better because, again, you're not going to convince the masses. You're just not going to convince the masses that this is going to get righted by next week. It really isn't. You got 8:20, 1 o'clock, 8:20. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. Mike, I know you're frustrated, you're fired up. I mean, it's going to have to get better, or as you stated, either Doug is going to have a very harsh conversation with Jeffrey Lurie. And if I remember correctly, too, when Jeffrey Lurie had talked originally to Doug Peterson, he did say that you do not have carte blanche. I remember that conversation because it was supposed to be that if things go awry, you will be let go. He's not going to be hanging on to guys like he used to do before. That loyalty with Jeffrey Lurie, when you won the Super Bowl, that's all fine and well the night that you won it, but that very next day it was back to business. So who's to say that they won't have the conversation? Who knows? Doug was talked to about it. When he got his extension, he was also talked to about it. So there is nothing to say that won't change. Who knows what's going to end up happening?
Well, here's the thing. You got a guy like Jason Peters who's very close with Jeff Lurie, but why the hell is he still on this team? Why? I mean, it's like a last resort. I mean, you gave the guy $5 million more after signing him to play right tackle for $3 million. It's absurd. The guy's made over like $120 million. For what? Take his hometown discount. You're going in the goddamn Hall of Fame. I mean, thanks for your services. It's a disgrace.
No, we'll
Playing. Step down. You're done.
We'll see. We're going to see what happens. But switching gears, again, the Bears won. And speaking with the Bears, we're going to have now on Mark Grote from the sideline reporter for the Chicago Bears. He joined us earlier this week. We're going to have him on. It was a fun conversation with Mark. He will be back as well with us. And, we just hope that the outcome is much better on the Chicago side right now than it is for the Eagles side. So we're going to play that segment, and then we will see you guys right after that same segment. All right, folks, so if you are joining us, again, this is a pre-recorded segment that we're having the honor with to have Mark Grote, and hopefully I'm saying it correctly. If I can get maybe a shake from Mark to make sure that the name is said correctly.
Great to me, actually. I like the Grote twist. That's perfect.
All right, well then.
I love it.
Mark is here with us, and to go back to show you guys here just in a second, I'm going to bring up the full screen where it's going to show Mark on Twitter. If you guys want to follow him, and again, he puts out many tweets per day, and we're talking, of course, Bears, Cubs, White Sox, Bulls, Blackhawks, but right now it's pretty much all Bears, even though the two other teams are in the postseason as well, and they're looking to wrap up the division. So that would be interesting this weekend to see who wins their division and obviously where they fall. And I do have a bracket later on where you can see that. But again, for Mark, you can follow him on Twitter. You can look him up also. If I can take that back away here for a second to bring the man back on. There he is. Mark is the last time, and I'll show his other banner here. You were a pre and post game, if I get the word right, host for the Cubs. Was back in 2015, 2017.
Yeah. So I was there during the best possible years of the franchise in the modern era. I was there for the 2015 unexpected season where they go to the National League Championship Series and eventually get swept by the Mets. But then 2016 was everything because that was the dominating start to the regular season, and then they ended up winning it all. So yeah, I had a very lucky to have a front row seat and be on all the charters with the players and their hotels and all that kind of stuff. I kind of lucked into a winning season to the max, I suppose, with the Cubs.
Well, and I'm pretty sure, and obviously with Mike and I being Philly fans, but I was fortunate to see the Phillies win it both times in 1980 when I was 10 years old, and I've seen it again in 2008. And it's fun as a fan to see how it all plays out. That's one of those things that I wish I could have. And my co-host, Mike Fuji, he worked for the Phillies organization, but it would have been so nice and fun as, like a beat reporter or someone that works inside with them to see him come from the beginning of the season, being there through all the ups and downs, and then finally win the World Series. So talk about luck. You're probably one of the lucky guys that I know.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite an adventure. I mean, it's hard to even put into words. I mean, it obviously something like that. It's amazing and it's an adventure, and then it's also a hell of a lot of work too. I mean, there is high demand for the Cubs in these parts, as you would expect, and we obviously carried the Cubs game. So there was a lot. It was every adjective you can come up with: exhilarating, exhausting, a blast, everything about it. And it's like the Cubs have been trying to catch that adrenaline rush ever since the 2016, which they have not quite recaptured. They've been a successful organization since, but just not to that level for sure.
Right. Mike, I don't know if you want to talk about as far as your Phillies experience that you were with them, but I know you got to see obviously the ups and downs with the team as well.
Yes, I did. I actually was a game day employee for the Phillies for 16 years, so I was fortunate enough to see the Phillies win in 2008. Also, I went out to Wrigley back in 2010. Saw the Phillies play the Cubs for 3 out of 4 games. Great experience, great town. Amazing. One of my favorite cities in the United States. Just
now, as a game day employee, did you get a ring? Did you get a ring out of that whole thing?
No, we didn't. I mean, we had the option to buy a ring, but
okay,
we didn't. I mean, we heard from like other teams like the Red Sox, they bought their game day employees rings, and I don't know if the Cubs employees ended up getting World Series rings or not, but we had the option to buy one, but I just never did at the time. So
I was fortunate with my girlfriend last summer. Yeah, because it's been a year. I think that already since we traveled out to Chicago. But the last time I went to Chicago, and again, this is where you start aging yourself. 1977 was the first time that I went to Chicago. So to remember Wrigley Field the way I remembered it when her and I went out there, it's pretty interesting because we get to see like new additions, what the Cubs have done. So it was nice to see like I guess I don't know if it's on the west side of the park where you have that artificial like grass and that restaurant that's here on the left. So for me, it being obviously one of the nostalgic parks other than Fenway Park, it is probably one of the neatest parks I could say that if I lived in Chicago, would I be a Cubs fan? I don't want to say too loud because she's one of my producers not that far away, but no, but it would be nice to go there. And we were hoping that the White Sox were going to be home that weekend, but they were actually in Tampa the weekend, and we went up to Chicago. So we went up there for a wedding, but we got to enjoy Wrigley Field, and that was pretty cool. I like the additions. I like behind the ballpark, you know, the bars that they have there. I mean, it's really nice. What they've done in the area is really, really nice. So I hope it stays that way and keeps getting better.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's always been a great neighborhood. I mean, I started going when I was a kid, early 80s, you know, before Wrigleyville really became Wrigleyville. You know, the dirty little secret about the town is that area was not a great area, and it was not what it was or what it is until about 1984. And then it started to become a trendy, posh kind of place to be. And then, you know, it was 84, the Cubs win the division when it meant something to win a division. And you had Harry Carey here broadcasting, and he was like the greatest ever, you know, ambassador for Cubs baseball. He's a big part of why Wrigleyville became Wrigleyville. And obviously it had all its success, and Wrigleyville was Wrigleyville. Now it's more Wrigleyville than ever because because, as you mentioned, the expansion, the renovations on the ballpark, all sorts of new restaurants. It's just one big carnival. I mean, hell, there's a hotel right across the street now too, so you don't have to go home necessarily. So it's quite a spot. It's quite a spot, no doubt about it.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, with all the bars like the Colby Bear, Harry Carey's, the bleachers, something bleachers.
Yeah, Murphy's.
Yeah. When I was out there, I'd stayed maybe a 10-minute walk, the hotel. I mean, the bars, it's just like amazing, like with all the Cubs fans, like pregame. And actually, when I wanted to go back, I wanted to go, like, if I ever go again, I like to do the Wrigleyville experience, you know, with the apartments, how you can buy the tickets, you know, everything's included, like, you know, soda, beer, food, just outside the stadium. But it's an amazing town.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's great, very diverse town. It's got it has everything you want. I mean, and us, like you guys too. You know how it is. It's like our cities are great in the summer and they kind of suck in the winter. And Chicago is no exception to there. Well, you guys are probably a little bit warmer there, but our winters can be brutal and the city kind of shuts down. But you know, summer, it's gorgeous here.
I was actually in Chicago exactly a year ago today.
Oh yeah.
I went out with a tailgating bunch called Straight Out of Philly for the Eagles game. Eagles played the Packers on a Thursday. So we stayed in Chicago for 3 nights.
Good choice.
And we charter bus took us out to Green Bay, 3-hour ride, but Green Bay was amazing.
Yeah, Lambeau's I've only been to Lambeau twice. I've been lucky enough to go there twice while covering the Bears. And I mean, Lambeau and Green Bay, it's its own little entity for sure. It's kind of like Wrigleyville. It's got its own, well, obviously it has its own zip code, but you know what I mean? It's its own insulated, nothing like anything else in the state. You know, that's Green Bay.
So now that you bring up Green Bay, because it kind of leads into something here. So being the Bears sideline reporter and being obviously from Chicago, how huge is that rivalry between Bears and Green Bay? Is it something that people don't look forward to, or is there kind of like one of those hated rivalries? Because for us, obviously, it's Dallas. We can't stand Dallas no matter, even if they win. To us, Dallas always sucks. It's just, something that we say in Philly. But I would imagine it's got to be almost the same kind of deal when it comes to Chicago and Green Bay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. There's definitely a lot of hate between the two teams. You know, I think that with Green Bay, you know, we're the big bad, you know, city of Chicago, and you know, sometimes there's that inferiority complex that comes into play with Green Bay. But yeah, I mean, just by proximity, the history of the NFL, the two franchises going back to George Halas and Vince Lombardi. And, you know, you guys know how it is. It's like with rivalries, and in particular with the Bears and Packers, they're only good really when both teams are good, you know, and there's been a lot of time where these two, like in the 80s, the Bears completely dominated the Packers. Since then, though, the 90s and the aughts, since Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, they've kind of owned the Bears to a large degree in terms of like the success over one over the other. So I definitely would say that. But yeah, I mean, it's a terrific. I mean, and the other thing too is that yes, the Bears and the Packers is still one of the great rivalries in the NFL. But for a while there, Green Bay and Minnesota probably had the best rivalry in the division, just because, again, of that proximity, and both teams were good for a while as well. So Minnesota's kind of crept in. They sort of barged in on the rivalry a little bit.
All right.
That's, well, I know if given the opportunity, I hope that one day I'll make it out there to Green Bay. There's certain stadiums that you just want to go to be just to be a part of history, whether it's football, baseball, especially because it's part of, I guess, not only just the sports history, it's just part of history itself. And to certain teams, it means more than to others. So one place, though, I'm not going to is to Arlington, Texas, to watch the Cowboys and the Eagles play over there. I'm just not going. I will never go there. And you can give me $1 million, I'm still not going there. I'd rather watch them in Philly than going to Dallas. So that's just me personally.
You can't stand the Dallas people? Why not?
That blue star, it's like the Death Blue Star. So
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit too much. I mean, we know that we can get over obsessive in Philly. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's the Philly fans go to Dallas. It's almost like it has to be like a battle royale. It just can't be like, hey, you guys are here, all right, so on and so forth. But I can't say much either because at Veterans Stadium, it used to be that up in the 700 level, it was a free for all. So it's kind of like just a mixed bag. So I'm good about going to Dallas. I don't mind going to see a Houston Texans game, but I'm not going to go see the Dallas Cowboys, not in their home turf. I think I'm good on that behalf. So it's just me. But I have a question for you, though. For me, it's one of those things because obviously, going into broadcasting and getting into media, I don't want to say that it's never as far as the time consuming, but it's learning the trade, getting a hold of the trade, and making sure that when you do come on, it's making sure that you, as you're entertaining everyone with what you're saying, it's factual for one, and for two, that you do put out, to me at least, a good product. So I guess my question to you would be, since coming to broadcast, was it something that you looked to do from your childhood? Or was it something as you went on later on in life, it just became more and more of where exactly you wanted to be?
Yeah, I think it was probably about high school age where that was when I earnestly decided that was what I wanted to do. And it was kind of like the early stages at that point of like late 80s of sports talk radio. I mean, where it's just kind of not necessarily all sports stations, but there would be sports talk shows on, and I kind of got into, and I was like, I want to do that. That seems like a really fun way to live. I think, like most of us who are in the business, I mean, it starts with your core, and at the core, I was a rabid sports fan. I was insatiable. I could not get enough sports in every way, shape, or form. I get to sit on the couch and watch sports for hours, and to the point where, all right, this is a passion. This is what I want to do. So yeah, I think it was probably about high school when I knew I wanted to do it, and I went to college for it, and a lot of steps in between, but here I am.
Oh, nice.
Mark, what was your number one job coming out of school?
Oh, the first job I had, the first gig I had was in a town called Peoria, Illinois, which is in the middle of the state. And I performed a couple things. I was like the overnight board operator, so we had network programming on. So I was basically pressing buttons and occasionally giving live weather reports at 3:00 in the morning. Read off of off an AP copy. And then I got to do some high school sports, like pre and post game stuff for the local high school team. So that was pretty cool. So it was actually a pretty decent gig because I got to do a lot of things and all the kind of the grunge work you got to do when you first start.
Yeah. Looking into it, so you have, now that you just mentioned as far as being on the radio at 3:00 in the morning. So my next question would be that, did you prefer to be on radio or television? But to kind of add to that question is, what were the major changes that you've seen, obviously, from starting from the year you started leading up to now? Like, as far as all the, technological ways that we've moved up, the forms of communication. So which one of the two did you prefer to be on first? And then how much of a change have you seen since, coming on to radio and TV?
Yeah, I guess it was always radio was my preference. I had nothing against TV. It's just kind of the path that I ended up taking. I didn't gather a lot of TV experience when I was in college, just for whatever reason. I don't even really know why. And I've done my fair share of television since then. But I guess I would have to say radio is always a path. I like the improvised nature of it. You can, for the most part, you can be yourself in radio. It doesn't take, as you can see right now, it doesn't take a lot of cleaning up to be on the radio. Here I am with you guys. So yeah, there's just something about radio that's, for lack of a better description, there's something that's just cooler about radio than TV. Even though TV is where you get some massive exposure. But I think that's changing radio too, where radio is almost just as big as TV in a lot of different circles. As far as the changes, I mean, the changes are pretty immaculate because. And really, the biggest changes have happened probably in the last 10 years, and that's social media. Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and everything, and the way everything is consumed and how it is immediate, and you don't wait till the next day. I'm on Zoom calls with the Bears all day, and that's my reporting. I'm reporting what they're saying. There it is. We're done, and there's nothing else. Obviously, you write about these things, and there's you expand on it. But yeah, and I think that in a lot of ways it's better because we all want information and we want it right away, and you don't want to have to wait for it. And then sometimes it's bad because there are things that get out there that are untrue and they're not sourced. And if somehow you got a little blue check mark by your name, people trust that and believe in it. And there's a lot of people that are irresponsible with it. So overall, it's better. I mean, more modes of communication in life I think are better. It's just that we have not mastered the usage and the misusage as well that occurs. So yeah, I mean, I can go on and on and on about the changes, but I think that's got to be the biggest thing. The immediacy. I mean, and I'm saying social media. I guess I should probably back it up and say, it starts with the internet. I mean, that was the real game changer, in the 90s or whenever it struck in earnest, from the internet into where we are now with social media just dominating and continuing to grow. I mean, there's no stopping it. Who knows where we are in 10 years from now?
Yeah, it's so true.
Mark, what was the feeling like to get the call to be part of the Cubs post-game, pre-game, post-game?
That was amazing. I mean, it was quite a process. The Cubs had been up until 2014 or 2015. They had been at another radio station that was not part of my cluster, for which I work now. And today they were at a radio station called WGN for years, and they were closely associated, for 50 plus years. And nobody ever thought that they would switch to another company, but my station, company that I work for, made a huge bid and they got the Cubs. So, all right, like many people, I threw my hat in the ring. I thought I was very well qualified to do the job, but I wasn't cocky enough to think that, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to get the job, because there was going to be tons of people from, Chicago and from all over the country that were going to be trying out for this job and interviewing for this job. So yeah, it was a pretty incredible process. They had me do like the mock pregame show. They put me in a studio with no script and just said, all right, pretend like you're doing a pregame show, few interviews. And then, yeah, when I got the gig, I was on cloud nine for sure. I mean, it was a massive moment for me. It kind of changed everything, in terms of, my profile and the direction and the trajectory of my career. So yeah, it was great for sure. And then as a sidebar, not even a sidebar, as a exclamation point, the Cubs had the success that they did while I was there.
Well, it would seem like it's and I might get back here in a second, but to me, it's one of those things. It seems like it would be at least a dream job. I mean, being both obviously with the Bears and the Cubs, and being a pre and post game, that would be for me, that would be fantastic as far as, doing the job itself, because it's one of those things that, you're probably right, as far as like pinch yourself and wondering, like, man, I made it. Like, this is great. And, so I know I'd be like a kid in a candy store just being giddy from ear to ear.
Yeah, I was. I got to admit, and I've said this before, so I'll say it again. I would say it is and was a great job. Doing the Bears sideline is a great job. I don't know if I've ever considered it like the end all, the dream job necessarily. Because I like to just kind of keep switching it up and hopefully reaching new heights and doing different things. But yeah, I mean, I'd be crazy not to say that it is a great job, a sought after job, and one that, as a kid growing up in Chicago, couldn't really ask for much more than having had a huge hand in the broadcast for the two biggest franchises in Chicago, those being the Bears and the Cubs. Those are the two teams that are paid attention to most in Chicago.
Mike, sorry.
Now, back to what you were saying about a dream job. I mean, to me, it was a dream job to me because I loved sports from maybe 2-3 years old when the Flyers won the Stanley Cup, because my father was a very big sports nut. And, grew up, my first love was the Phillies. And all I ever did, at that age was eat, drink, sleep, baseball. I was just a big 4-for-4 guy. And, now I got my chance, and, I'm just loving it. And, just love talking sports. I mean, just like a sports fanatic all the way around. So just coming from my standpoint.
Yeah, I always say, like, you have your passion, find a way to get paid for doing it, and I think
right.
that's kind of that's pulling off a goal, if not a dream, for sure.
Right. I mean, they always said, find a job you're, going to love doing for life. Make sure. Just, like you said, with the passion, and, you meet different people along the way, and just, it's amazing.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
It definitely is. And Mark, because I don't want to mess up your last name again for a second time. So I'm going to say Mark, you say your last name, so I'll screw it up.
Grote.
Grote. There you go. So we had Mark Grote, Chicago Bears sideline reporter. He has given us at least the opportunity to talk to him. And again, we thank you for obviously coming on. We know that you're busy, and we know you have a long day. And kind of with that being said, what is your work day? Like from sun up to sundown? I mean, I'd imagine it filled every single minute. And then when you get me time, I guess to say it properly, how much me time do you get? And at least do you at least enjoy me time when you get the chance?
Yeah, and that's an interesting question, because I guess like my days are so much different than they were pre-COVID-19. So what I do now is I actually added to, and I didn't even add this to haven't even added this yet because this is new. I host a show every morning on the Score on my radio station from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. I do a show that's kind of a highlight show from all the sports from the night before. So I do that every morning. And then normally, if things had been normal, I would get in my car and drive to the Bears headquarters, which is in a suburb called Lake Forest, which is about an hour or so away from Chicago. But during COVID-19, I'll go there sometimes, but most days I'm right here doing Zoom stuff now with coaches and players or whomever the Bears decide to let us speak to on a daily basis. So there's that. And then I'm doing stuff. I'm also part of the Bears pregame show along with doing the sideline stuff. So I'm doing one-on-one Zooms with the players. And then I am going on my radio station, The Score, and just doing guest spots like I'm doing with you guys right now, where I just talk about the Bears as the Bears beat guy. If they want to have me on and shoot the breeze about the Bears and talk about the news of the day, I do that with them. So, so it's just, there's nothing, the only thing that is set in stone on a daily basis is the show that I do from 5 to 6, and then everything else is kind of up in the air in terms of when they do the Zoom calls. We're kind of at their behest in terms of the timing. So, And then, yeah, usually the free time, I'm usually done with my day. It's actually not that bad. I've usually been done around 5 o'clock or so. So, then like you guys, I'm usually watching sports at night, and then the whole cycle starts again. So
Exactly. Mike?
Was going to say, it goes without saying, with the organization, with the Bears lost a living legend this week, with Gale Sayers. The Hall of Fame put a great piece in his memory, Mr. Sayers. Did you ever have the opportunity to meet Gale Sayers?
I did meet him once. It was literally, I think it was just a handshake amongst a lot of people. So Gale Sayers actually used to work for my radio station. He used to do a, once a week, twice a week hit on the radio station as one of our Bears experts. And he was at one of our company parties, so I got to meet him there. So yeah, I didn't really get to see him play, but I've seen the immaculate highlights and just the unbelievable work that he did on the field. And yeah, it definitely hit Chicago. His loss, he had been sick for a while, and you didn't really hear much about him. You didn't see him around town as much because he was fairly present. I mean, doing charity functions and doing radio and TV spots, and all of a sudden, just the last few years, you didn't hear much from him. But it was, it's always like the weird good side benefit when we lose somebody like that. You get to remember all the greatness, and there certainly was a lot of that with Gale Sayers.
Well, there's a video clip actually we're going to show here, and it was, I guess, put together by the Pro Football Hall of Fame, which the Bears end up obviously showing. But we're going to show it, and there's a question that's going to lead from Gale as well, from another living legend that obviously used to be a Chicago Bear. But we're going to show the clip here from Gale Sayers.
Just give me 18 inches of daylight. That's all I need. Born in Wichita, Kansas, but raised in Omaha, Nebraska, Gale Eugene Sayers, one of 3 sons raised by Roger Winfield Sayers and Bernice Ross. He attended the University of Kansas, and with 4,000 all-purpose yards, was named the Kansas Comet, but football was not a means to an end.
I went to college not as an athletic student, but a student athlete.
He was selected by the Chicago Bears as the 4th overall pick in the 1965 draft by owner, GM, and head coach Papa Bear.
And I want to give a special thanks to George Halas. A man who more than anyone else has made professional football what it is today. There's not much you can say about someone who's become a legend in his own lifetime, but I want to try. Mr. Halas is one of those rare individuals who is not content with things as they are, but sees things as they could be and works to make things better.
As a rookie, he exploded with an NFL record 22 touchdowns, capped off in December on a muddy Wrigley field with 6 touchdowns. As great as he was on the field, his quiet wisdom and integrity made him the perfect choice for George Halas. Halas chose Gale to become the first African-American ever in the NFL history to room with a white player in 1967, Brian Piccolo. They were completely opposites who found themselves to be best friends through football. A true story that captured America's ideal of coming together in Brian's song. They became great friends, and it was Gale at Brian's bedside when he tragically passed away before the season started. A sober part of life's journey.
Reaching this point, however, is not as important as striving to get here. This is true in all professions, in all life's activities. There are doctors, lawyers, school teachers, plumbers, all who strive to do the very best to their abilities. We hear a lot today about how the American people have lost their dedication to excellence. I don't believe that is true. Each of us excels at different things, sometimes in areas that are only a hobby, more often in our life's vocation. The most important thing, however, is to strive to do our very best.
Gale Sayers, Hall of Famer forever.
Well, so again, I like the tribute. I think he did a really good job in describing his life. There's like two other ones too that they put together, and Gail talked about obviously the impact of, obviously from his roommate, the feelings that as far as he had, being the first African American to be roommates with a white male, and the bond that they shared, and it meant more to them than football. And it's been said that every time his name has been brought up, that he's cried, he shed a tear, and he just it's as if it would happen just yesterday. So I couldn't imagine to lose a friend at the age of 26 and being by his side when he should have been playing the game. And so I like the tribute, and I think it's really touching.
Yeah, it was great. I actually had not seen that montage you just played right there. That was great stuff, and it kind of said it all. And yeah, Brian's song, the Brian Piccolo story, with subsequently, the Gale Sayers story too, and that, about a friendship in a time when, well, I guess it's not completely different nowadays, but a time when that was a rarity. The black and white friendship, and blacks and whites walking in lockstep. So there was something promising about that friendship, and you wanted to be symbolic of the rest of society, because it certainly was not at the time, and to a large degree, same thing today. So that was a great piece, and I think Gale Sayers, like, it's good for him to the first words he says that that he was a student athlete at Kansas. Right. When I hear that terminology now, I just kind of do what I just did. I laugh, but he truly took it seriously.
No, he did, and it leads me into, because obviously for people in Philly, and I think all across the world, you look at one of the true legends of Chicago, and that would be obviously Walter Payton. And what he did within the community, I mean, what he did for the game. I mean, just the kind of person that he was. It's Gale passes, and it's a reflection too of like Walter, and just kind of putting those two men together. I mean, what they did for the various organization alone was huge. But Walter Payton obviously being just as big, if not just a little bit bigger, not taking anything away from Gale whatsoever. But I would imagine being, whether being a teenager or a child, seeing, Walter Payton's life, from what I understand, he was huge in the community. People could see him around town. So, I mean, for me, it would be exciting. The only opportunity you get to see him for us here, obviously he's on the field, but I couldn't even imagine what it would be like. And I don't know if you ever got the chance to encounter Walter yourself.
Yeah, again, Walter's another guy that also worked at the radio station. I was a little too young. I never covered him in the business, but I definitely had met him a couple times. And interestingly enough, I worked very closely with his son, Jared Payton, who also is in the media today. So it's always good to get stories about Walter from him. And yeah, from all accounts, he was a great guy who, like you said, was always fan friendly, always willing to, be a keynote speaker for a charitable function. And, he and Gale, it sounds weird to say, but they meant a lot to Bears fans and still do. Walter is probably, untouchable in terms of popularity, but big time Bears, I mean, he's right there. But they set a precedent, and they set a template for the organization, which still lasts in today, and that's the concept of being a rugged running football team.
Right.
Look, Mark, as far as the Bears starting off at 2-0, which is probably a surprise to a lot of people, how do you think they'll pan out the rest of the season?
It's a great question, because they're 2-0 against two bad teams in Detroit and the New York Giants. So the good thing is like coaches always say, it's good when you win and you still have a lot to clean up. It's a lot easier to clean stuff up when you still win games. So there's a lot that the Bears still have to tighten up, make better on both sides of the ball. And if they can take a step up from where they are right now, then yeah, I think 2-0 is a pretty good formula to having a successful season. But if they don't go up in their own grade, they're going to have a 500 type of season, if not worse. So it's got to get a lot better. And I think that, this week the Bears are at Atlanta. I think that's going to be a better test for the defense than the first 2 weeks have been, just because we all know the weapons that exist on Atlanta with Calvin Ridley and, Julio Jones, if he's healthy, and then of course Matt Ryan, and, they just have nonstop weapons. Their defense is not very good. But so, I'm actually for 1 week, I'm actually more concerned about the Bears defense than I am the offense. But this is kind of the first semi-test for the Bears. First 2 weeks, they count, and 2-0 is great, and they're better than the bad teams, but those are not good teams to beat.
Right. Well, to piggyback on what Mike just said there, as far as the question, it's 2-0 and they're facing Atlanta. We saw what happened last week with Atlanta as far as the Cowboys, and for the life of me, I don't understand it. I know, like Stephen A. Smith, for example, I was watching this week as he went completely ballistic of what happened. But how do you watch a ball spin and travel for 10 yards and not jump on it? Like it looked like a comedy sketch from Benny Hill, because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. That was incredible.
Yeah, that was bad. That's like, if you're an Atlanta fan, you're just like, you're losing your mind. You're throwing stuff at the TV. You're breaking stuff. You're punching holes in the wall. And not for that, just the fact that they blew, what was it, a 15-point lead they had in the fourth quarter? I mean, this franchise under Dan Quinn, they have been known to lose it. They lost it to the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl when they had a lead, and it looked like they were going to knock down the evil New England Patriots. So, yeah, I guess that portends well for the Bears, but then also you're going to have a team that's kind of angry coming into this week, and Atlanta's got to be feeling like they're in must-win mode early in the season. They're at home. They had that awful loss. They probably should be 1-1. They're better than 0-2, I think. So, and that's going to be an angry team going into this week based on what you just said and some of the things that I've laid out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Mike, I don't know if you wanted to add something to it.
Yeah, I was going to get into about the Tariq Cohen signing the 3-year extension. Saw that he left money on the table about signing Allen Robinson. Are the Bears making Allen Robinson a priority to sign right now?
That is the $1 million question around here. That is probably, other than the Bears starting 2-0, Allen Robinson has been the big story. We've been asking Allen Robinson since, the organized team activities, the OTAs, started about the contract. And early on, months ago when the offseason just started, his answer was, that's something that, we got to figure out, and I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it, until about a week ago when everything kind of blew up because Allen Robinson had made some cryptic statements on Twitter. A lot of his teammates were supporting him, with the hashtags like, pay Allen Robinson. And here we are 2 games into the season now, and he has not gotten paid yet. And it's pretty clear, very clear, that Allen Robinson's not happy about it.
Well, there were rumors probably within the last couple of weeks that he wanted to be traded. And the rumor was, the Eagles, of course, the Eagles are always supposed to be on every play. Do you find that to be true?
Well, we did talk to Allen Robinson when all that whole storm came up, and yeah, there was one report that he had asked for a trade and that teams had called the Bears in regards to Allen Robinson, maybe the Eagles. But when we talked to Allen Robinson, the best way to put it is he neither confirmed nor denied. So, he kind of left it all out there for us to interpret. And I would interpret that as yeah, he probably did nudge his agent, or his agent said, here's what we're going to do. Here's the way this works. We'll throw this out there. We'll get a storm all stirred up, and he did. I mean, that was a win for Allen Robinson in terms of the public eye, because he is heavily supported by Bears fans and, quite frankly, by the media, because Allen Robinson has been really good to the media in his time here. He's been a good guy, and he's been very helpful to those of us who hold microphones and notepads. So, yeah, it's definitely the worker in this case that is getting the support.
As far as an ex-Bear wide receiver who's currently in Philadelphia, Alshon Jeffrey. Was Alshon, I'm sure you know the rumors coming out of the Eagles locker room the last couple of years about Alshon Jeffrey was basically the voice that was trashing Carson Wentz. Now, when he played in Chicago, was he like that as a player that would stir up rumors?
The Bears had Alshon Jeffrey before he got paid. So he didn't. He did not say a lot during his time with the Bears. He was very quiet. The one narrative around Alshon Jeffrey was always that he didn't want to stay with the Bears because he hates the cold weather and he wanted to go play for some place in the Sun Belt. So that was always the one thing that he never, again, there was never a confirmation or a denial of that, and which is ironic that he ended up signing with Philadelphia, considering that's not exactly a warm weather climate either. So a lot of Bears fans were like, "What the hell?" So it was always like this weird, like he was very quiet, a man of few words, and he just never. It seemed like he never really liked being part of the organization, although he was really good with the organization. I mean, he made some spectacular catches, and he was terrific in his time with the Bears, but you just never got the feeling that he was going to be long-term, and that obviously played out.
Right. Well, I know he played opposite of Brandon Marshall.
Yes. Yep.
He's outspoken and great receiver. Just, playing with Jay Cutler when he going back to their days in Denver and, hooking up again with the Bears.
Yeah, Alshon didn't have to say a lot when you're playing with Brandon Marshall. You have that talkative of a guy, but yeah, like I said, he was not a made man when he was with the Bears. He was certainly on his way, and I think that's probably in life we all feel a little bit more empowered when we have the power, and money is that, and he did not have it, relatively speaking, when he was with the Bears. So he kept his mouth shut. But like I said, there was always that underlying narrative of he doesn't want to be here.
Right.
There's another guy that brought us that Vince Lombardi trophy on backing up Mitch Trubisky by the name of Nick Foles. What is your take as St. Nick? We call him here.
I know you guys love him. Yeah, I mean, why not? I always call him, I always refer to Nick Foles as the greatest backup quarterback of all time. Like, I mean, I think that there's an argument to be made. The guy comes off the bench to win a Super Bowl, comes off the bench to beat the Bears in the double doink game at Soldier Field. And just getting to know him via Zoom, and you guys probably know this, he seems like an unbelievable human being. In terms of his play on the field, I mean, he's done what he's done on the field. I think the reason that he did not win the quarterback competition with Mitchell Trubisky was because he just didn't have enough time to learn the offense in earnest. And I think that he kind of, he didn't say that, but you could kind of read between the lines that that's the way it felt. That Trubisky's familiarity in these weird times is why he beat out Nick Foles. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Foles at some point in time. But, in the interactions I've had with him, great dude. And he is a big time upgrade as a backup quarterback for the Bears this year, because they had Chase Daniel last year. So, and every time Trubisky throws a bad pass, there's the murmurs of and the rumblings of, hey, put Nick Foles in. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Good.
Go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, what would you say you're taking Foles as far as his teammates, like loving them? And
yeah, it seems like it. Again, it's always so hard because we've not been allowed in the locker room
Right.
So normally I'd have a better answer for that, like in terms of how, who's hanging out with who in the locker room and how they take to him. But anybody that we've asked, it seems like a genuine, yeah, Nick's great. Seems like a good dude. He is, like Trubisky raves about him, and you talk about a guy saying the right things, Foles all along said, look, it doesn't matter whoever wins this quarterback job is going to win, and then the other guy's going to support the hell out of him. And that's what it appears that Foles is doing, that he is Team Mitch until, something happens and it goes to Foles. So he didn't whine or complain. I think, he knows all the coaches on the staff, starting with Matt Nagy and John DeFilippo and Juan Castillo. I think wasn't he in Philly for a while, Juan Castillo?
Yeah.
He was the offensive line coach for years, even under Ray Rhodes back in the early 90s, mid-90s.
Right. So, and he's got a relationship with him. So, yeah, I mean, the overall is that he is a great team guy, and it seems like to a man, everybody loves Nick Foles. And I do the sideline, so I saw him on the sideline the other day, and it looked like he was being very helpful to the coaches and to Mitch Trubisky. So he seems like I said, the greatest backup quarterback of all time.
Yeah.
Did have the opportunity to meet Nick Foles at a Modell's one time. Very, very down-to-earth guy, gentleman, very docile. Just a class act.
He's tall, huh? Like, I never knew how tall he was.
It's like 6'6". I think he played basketball at Arizona State, too.
Yeah, he I don't know why, like, he didn't come across as a tall guy. I don't know what that means exactly, but I don't know. He doesn't have tall guy tendencies. And I saw him I'm like, Jesus, he's a tall guy. Okay, didn't know that about Nick Foles.
Yeah, but very down to earth person.
Yeah.
All right, that's the one person. If any sports athlete would be on for the first time ever in our show, like Nick Foles, obviously would be huge. Of course, the difference is you have to talk to agents and publishers and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the only downside, unfortunately. And, I am nowhere near that clout yet to be able to put something like that together. But that would be huge, at least for the Philly fans, because obviously he's well missed in Philadelphia. But it comes down to, obviously, Trubisky, which some people are fans, some people aren't fans. I can't say I'm a huge Trubisky fan ever since he came to Chicago. My girlfriend definitely is not a huge Chicago Trubisky fan. I will say huge Bears fan, but obviously not for him. But I won't take away from what he looked like. He had a little bit of pocket presence this week. And he had a touchdown drive to Mooney that I'm going to show here. And it's probably the most comfortable I've ever seen Trubisky. Now, whether it's he had the extra time or he can actually read the play, something that it seems like he hasn't been able to do since coming on to the pros. It's always been a problem with him at the line. But this is probably the most comfortable I've seen. So I'm going to play this clip real quick. And it's the touchdown to Mooney.
This is a 3rd and 8 for Chicago. Trubisky steps up, steps back. Trubisky will air it out. End zone, touchdown! Makes the connection with Mooney. Mitch Trubisky cashes in. And the Bears build on their lead.
And two things struck me on this play. One, Mitchell Trubisky kept it alive with his movement in the pocket and out. Second part, he trusts the rookie downfield from Tulane. That could essentially have been a 50-50 ball. We trusted the rookie to see him and come back and make a play on the football ahead of Corey Ballantyne. That's exactly how it turned out.
He beats the young corner Ballantyne, Division II product from Washburn. Cairo Santos is on for the extra point. And that's the point with Trubisky. Is it the prettiest ball?
No.
No. Did it get there?
Yes.
So for me, that's the first time I've seen Mitch, actually plant his feet, like I said, have the time to look, and without throwing an interception in the end zone. But he looked at least a little more assured. Now, it's young still as far as the season. Again, 2-0, things can change. But it's probably the only time that I've seen in Bears history for him, the short time he's been there, that he actually looked comfortable on that O-line. So, whether an improvement, I know you guys didn't get a chance too much to see what happened during the 4 games or the 4 weeks they had during the condensed season. as far as what normally you guys can see them, pregame, mini camp, and all the good fun stuff. But do you see a change from last year to this year, or is it because they brought Nick Foles in and it's kind of helping him a little bit?
I've seen flashes of it. That's certainly a play right there. That's a great example of, probably in past years on that particular play, he would have taken off and run, or maybe danced to the sideline. But in this case, he, was able to find spot and, as they said, trust the rookie Darnell Mooney on that play. It was a hell of a play by Mooney too, because at that point it's a free-for-all and it's a just get the hell open for your quarterback. And that's what Darnell Mooney did. So he made a great play too, but it was great. We haven't always seen great presence of mind out of Mitch Trubisky, and he certainly had it on that play. Now, have I seen that a lot this year? Not really. I mean, there were times, the first half of last week, the fourth quarter of week 1, we saw it, but he has not put together 4 quarters yet where you're like, okay, this, Mitch is dangerous and they're going to win because of him. That's a terrific play you showed, but there hasn't been enough of it.
Yeah, I agree. Mike?
I think, and this isn't gospel, but when John DeFilippo was here, the year the Eagles won the Super Bowl, being Carson Wentz's quarterback coach, it was stated on one of the Eagles beat reporters after John DeFilippo left, stating that the thing is, Carson Wentz is a lot like Aaron Rodgers. He wants to do things himself. Well, John DeFilippo said, we're doing it my way, just to show, the pocket presence, just the way DeFilippo taught Wentz. I mean, he was probably the MVP, the undisputed MVP to me that year of 2017 up until when he got hurt. And I just think John DeFilippo and the presence of Nick Foles could maybe really straighten out Trubisky's game to, be an up-and-coming better quarterback than he has been the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, I mean, Trubisky has had a lot of coaches in his first 3 years with the Bears, a lot of different voices in the room. So it's hard to figure out where the best information is coming from, who is in his ear more than anybody. And obviously, as DeFilippo, as the quarterback's coach, one would suspect that he would have a large influence on him. But, it's Bill Lazor is the offensive coordinator. And those guys, they've all worked together before. So hopefully they're working in concert. But yeah, I mean, when we've had a chance to talk to DeFilippo, I'm just getting to know him a little bit. And he seems, as you indicated, very confident in his ways and his concepts. But, that's the thing too about John DeFilippo. He's getting to know Mitch too, and what his tendencies are and what he has to do to make him better. So I think it's a work in progress with the coaching staff that Maggie has assembled this year, and still, for better or for worse, it's still a work in progress with Trubisky.
Right.
No, I'm hoping, I know, because I could pick on him all day, and I don't want to, obviously, for obvious reasons, but I think I'm hoping that, with Nick being there, maybe it will help him get better, because he can only get better. I mean, you can get worse. And it almost goes without kind of saying here with Carson Wentz, because the Eagles, obviously, switching gears here, they're tied in to a lot of money coming in with Carson Wentz. A lot of the fans here, of course, have been called for Carson because the Eagles drafted in the second round Jalen Hurts, which all of us were completely surprised and shocked that even happened. But it almost goes to show that maybe they're not too confident in Nate Sudfeld. Maybe they needed something different. I know they're trying to do something like Taysom Hill with New Orleans, but I think Mike might agree, may not. I think if Carson doesn't show up this week, and it can't be just this week, it's got to be this week, basically from here to the bye week, it's got to be consistent. But I think if it comes down to, and as much as Doug has a lot of love for Carson, if he doesn't show up this week, I believe there might be even more rumor mills that Jalen will come in. And if that's the case, you got to find out where they can put Carson Wentz. Now, I don't know, maybe Carolina's a good fit for him, because Carolina needs somebody, because Teddy Bridgewater is not the answer in Carolina's.
Man, I got to tell you, for an outsider like me, looking in, that just sounds crazy. Like just because you're talking about how Carson Wentz was the undisputed MVP until he got hurt, and he's Carson freaking Wentz. It's just that blows my mind, man. But I'm not in the Philly capsule right now, and I guess we got a similar scenario here where the second Trubisky starts to struggle, it's going to be calls for Nick Foles.
Right.
Oh, I think good.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just gonna say I think Doug's gonna stick with Wentz. I mean, he's to me he's doing too much. I mean, the defense laid an egg last week. The secondary looked like Keystone Cops. I mean, Wentz is, Philly, the quarterback always takes majority of the blame. And I think Wentz will get back to his game and step in this week. And, I believe the Eagles will get a win against the Bengals. He's, no OTAs, no training camp, no preseason, rookie receivers, an offensive line that's banged up. And I think we'll get it back on track.
Yeah, it's hard to be patient. I mean, and we all want to dismiss the preseason game factor, but I guess we really can't. I mean, I think that struggle's been going on with the way the Bears defenses look so far, because the Bears defense is supposed to be elite, but they keep saying, look, this is still a ramp up period, and nobody wants to think that preseason games actually have meaning, but I guess maybe they do. I don't know.
You got players dropping left and right. Saquon Barkley gone for the year. Christian McCaffrey out 3 weeks. It's just no OTAs, no mini camps.
Yeah.
No preseason. I mean, of course, it's not like the old days when they had 2-a-day practices.
Right.
Mini camp and they were killing each other with pads on.
Exactly. Right.
It was like less injuries back then as well.
Yeah, two days with full pads. Wow, that was something.
90-degree heat and everything.
Yeah.
Man, and speaking of, as far as come to the guys here, so you have obviously Khalil Mack, who basically got a steal from the Raiders, and thanks to the Raiders for basically giving away, and good for Chicago. But there's another defensive lineman here, and Hicks. From what I see, it seems like right now that guy's on, I don't know if you want to call it a fire, but Hicks seems to be a beast, at least with the last game. And again, I don't know if you got the opportunity to see him during practice at all this year, because, again, from the core team. How does Hicks seem to you? Is this something where, I mean, I know he's not really, I guess, injury prone, and we hope not, but how does Hicks look to you, I guess, in comparison with Mack and helping out the defensive squad?
Yeah, I mean, Hicks is a great player. He means a lot to that defense. And unfortunately for the Bears, Hicks was hurt in week 6 last week, so they were without him almost the entire year, and that was coming off of 2018 where he went to his first Pro Bowl. I think it was his first Pro Bowl, and just had this outstanding, dominant season. And so a lot of the letdown that occurred with the Bears defense and with Khalil Mack last year, a lot of that was blamed on the lack of Akeem Hicks's presence. So him being back affects everything, man. Down in those trenches, he allows so many other players to thrive, and he's thriving himself. He was injured a little bit in training camp. He had a quad injury, and I think he was still coming off the injury from last year. So we were all anxious to see what he would do and how he would respond. And so far, so good. He's had a sack at each game. He's had a couple tackles for losses. It seems like he's had the perfect, rant. He hasn't been dominant for 4 quarters, just like a lot of the players, but he is definitely showing up on the stat page and has made some really important plays early on. And that's just, quite frankly, that's what Akeem Hicks does. He makes big plays.
Right. Good, Mike.
Also, it seems like David Montgomery is doing rather well. I mean, I heard, it's like a revamped offensive line for him and Tariq Cohen in that backfield.
Yeah, Montgomery had a weird year last year. He was their first pick in the draft last year. It was a 3rd rounder, but he was their first pick. So there was a lot expected out of him. And it was just such a weird year for the Bears offense. It was so inconsistent and bad at times that it was hard to tell if David Montgomery was good or not at this level. We asked that question, but he's been terrific in the first 2 games. There had been so much talk about, because he was one of those guys who got in better shape this year. The coaches were predicting that he's going to be the guy that's going to take a jump, and all of us kind of be like, okay, let's see, because there's so much optimism that always occurs in training camp. So through 2 games, he's been great. I mean, positive yardage on almost every carry. He's looked good. He had a touchdown last week on an improvised play. So far, so good for David Montgomery and for the running game, for that matter, which had been relatively non-existent with Matt Nagy in his first couple of years here.
What's your take of Jimmy Graham?
I'll put him in the category as well. So far, so good. He the first game with the Bears, there was a couple there. It seemed like there was some rust because he had a couple of mistimed jumps, but he ended up having a touchdown. And they are definitely trying to go to him. They're going to him more than I thought they would, and having more success with it than I thought they would. I mean, there's the tight ends. You guys, we snagged Trey Burton from you guys, at least out of free agency, and he just, it didn't work out. And Trey Burton was supposed to be a big part of the Bears offense, and the tight ends, it was just this miserable group player wise. Like, it just wasn't working out. And so in comes Jimmy Graham, and they drafted Cole Kmet out of Notre Dame, and the position looks a lot better. And I have to be careful, because maybe I'm saying that just relative to what it was. Is Jimmy Graham really good? Are the tight ends really good? I don't know, but they're a hell of a lot better than what they were the last 2 years.
Talking about one of the best tight ends going back, 5-6 years. It's probably the best tight end in the game next to Gronk. Guy was a beast with the Saints. Went to Seattle, and he just fell off in Green Bay the last couple of years. Just like Jimmy Graham, where did you go?
Yeah, I think Jimmy Graham got old. He got older, right. And you're right. He was on a Canton path for a while with New Orleans. He was so good that he was trying to get paid like a wide receiver. But right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think it's just aging in his case, and he did not have a great connection with Aaron Rodgers. So a lot of Bears fans, a lot of us were like, okay, how is this going to be any better in Chicago with Trubisky if he couldn't make it work with Aaron Rodgers? But they feel like they saw something that they said, okay, we can make this guy work. And through 2 games, I've liked his contribution.
Right.
Mike, I know you had a co-host that had a question specifically for Mark. So I don't know if you still have it or not.
I have a good friend that I work with that's a huge Bears fan. He's from South Dakota.
Okay.
Big Neil Anderson fan growing up.
Oh.
And he wanted to ask, I told him that, we'd be talking to you. And he wanted me to ask you to compare Neil Anderson with Matt Forte.
That's a great question. I think Neil Anderson was more explosive. I think Neil Anderson was faster. Neil Anderson at times was a deep threat, even in the Bears offense. I think Matt Forte might have been a little bit more complete for a longer time, because there was a couple of years where Neil Anderson was probably, maybe like a 2 or 3 year period where, when you talk about best all around running backs in the NFL, I think he held that distinction in a lot of people's eyes. It seemed like Matt Forte was a bigger part of the every down offense of the Bears. So I think that's a great comp, between those 2 players. I would say that Forte probably stands a little bit higher than Neil Anderson overall. But honestly, if I put my fan cap on, I like Neil Anderson is one of my favorite Bears of all time. I loved his speed and his ability to, kind of like Tariq Cohen-esque with the speed and the ability to run go routes and run some deeper routes, which is not something that Matt Forte did a lot of.
Would you say Neil Anderson was in the shadow of Walter Payton big time?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, he had to, he was a first round draft pick of the Bears. He comes in and played behind Walter Payton for the first year, and he was returning. Neil Anderson was on special teams, and he was really good on special teams, but it was kind of a wasted year because, Walter Payton, that year was kind of in the downslide, and probably even that year, Neil Anderson would have been the better running back. But it's Walter freaking Payton, so you got to show some respect, and you got to let Walter Payton play it out. And I don't think any Bears fan had a problem with that. I didn't have a problem with that, but I think we all knew in the back of our heads at that point Neil Anderson was the better running back, and then Walter retires. In comes Neil Anderson. And yeah, he was definitely in the shadow. But you know what? Talk about, like, there's a lot. Like, if you had to follow up Walter Payton or any great player, most of those guys fail. And Neil Anderson didn't fail. Neil Anderson was terrific. And, it's usually the next guy that succeeds. You don't want to be the guy that follows the great guy. And Neil Anderson was a terrific Bear and kind of followed kept up with the tradition of great running backs. So I did nothing but bouquets to throw the way of Neil Anderson.
Thank you.
Well, before I got two more here to go for you, but to switch gears, obviously, because the Bulls have hired the OKC coach, Billy Donovan. So, and he just got, which I just learned today, Billy got the something like the co-host, or I know he shared the Coach of the Year award. So he got it. It was at 50-50, but I can't say that I've known Billy Donovan enough to know if he can take the reins of Chicago Bulls and make the Chicago Bulls of, the years that we have seen of winning, your 5 championships, obviously the multiple championships in a row. So how do you feel with Billy Donovan being hired by the Bulls, and can he bring this organization back?
Well, I think that he's a huge upgrade from what they had. So the Bulls have been dealing with the last couple of years with Jim Boylan, and Boylan became pretty much a punchline around here, just because some of the ways that he dealt with players and teams and his tactics. He had this horrible tendencies to call timeouts at the end of blowouts, and it just kind of became a joke around here. So when Billy Donovan became available, I don't think most Bulls fans thought that they'd have a shot at Billy Donovan, because Donovan left OKC because he didn't want to be part of a rebuild. The Bulls are a rebuilding franchise. The Bulls are bad right now. They have, maybe some talented players, but they've been awful. So compared to what they had, Billy Donovan is a competent head coach in the NBA. He had a relatively successful 5 years with OKC, where he's in the playoffs every year. There were some early exits for which he's been criticized, but it seems like he brings a lot of ability. It seems like he's in lockstep with upper management, which wasn't always the case with some of the previous Bulls coaches that existed here. So on the surface, first blush, seems like a really good hire for the Bulls, but we'll see, because there's just so much that still has to be straightened out with the Bulls organization in terms of personnel and the players on the floor.
Right. And the other thing is, obviously, now the irony is, with the condensed season, what it is with baseball, you have the Cubs and the White Sox that are both going to the postseason. Cubs, I think, are up 2.5, if I remember correctly, in their division, and the White Sox are up by 1. So they both have the opportunity of winning their divisions this weekend. Ironically, though, it's because they're playing the Crosstown Classic. So if we look at the postseason bracket here, this is so far what's been out there. Now, this could change. Who knows? But you would have the Sox facing the Yankees. And me personally, I think the Sox can beat the Yankees. Yankees are not. I thought, truthfully, this year they were going to win the ALCS, but the Yankees have yet to prove that to me the way as of late. Then you got the Cubs playing, looks like the Brewers for the most part. And I think the Cubs can also beat the Brewers, but the Brewers are almost like that sleeper team that you just don't know what can end up happening. But it's going to be an interesting weekend. And with that being said, so I have my girlfriend's sister and brother-in-law, who are the Blaniks. They're Cubs fans. And, of course, it's all Cubs all the time. And so my girlfriend, she points out to me all the time is that the White Sox never get enough as far as talk in Chicago. Is it just because the Cubs are that dominant, or is it because, I guess, they splash them more in the market than they do with the White Sox?
Yeah, I mean, there's just more Cubs fans than White Sox fans, unfortunately, for Sox fans. That's just the way it is. I mean, not that can't change. And there's a ton of Sox fans, but there's just more Cubs fans. I mean, that's the reason for it. That said, the White Sox have had a great season. I mean, they have slumped recently, and they've had some horrid, heartbreaking losses over the last week since they clinched the playoff berth. But this was an unexpected surprise for White Sox fans this year. Like, they knew that they were building something, and there was a lot of raw talent. But I think a lot of Sox fans, and even management to some degree, I think that they thought that next year would be the year that the Sox would be really good. They got the jump on it this year. They're into the playoffs, and they, like a lot of teams, can probably do some damage in the postseason. I don't think it's such a great matchup, though, that the White Sox would take on the Yankees. The Yankees were bad early, not bad, but very average, and now they have hit their pace. And there's something about the Yankees that seems to freak teams out just by seeing that uniform. I mean, the Minnesota Twins could say something like that. The Oakland A's, all these teams that don't have the same market share, so to speak. And I would worry about that with the White Sox. They could beat the Yankees, but I just worry about the size of going up against the Yankees.
That is true. And it's going to look different this year as well, because obviously everything is being played on the West Coast, again, because they're doing the bubble thing this year for the first time in baseball. And then they finish up the series. Whoever goes to the World Series will be in Arlington with the new Ranger Stadium. So that's going to be pretty much interesting to watch how all that even ends up playing out. So it's, I guess, because we've been used to so many years of watching our teams play in their stadiums. And one of the few things that you can see, especially with baseball, if you get the luck like you had a couple years ago with the Cubs, that you get to see the team win it in front of their home fans. So it's just like the NHL right now. The Tampa Bay Lightning they're in it. They got 2 more games to win, and it could be a massive celebration here in Tampa. Unfortunately, it won't be because they won't be here. So who knows if there'll be a parade? So it's going to be really interesting when it comes to baseball and see how it plays, because I'm used to just being home. So it'd been nice to see, obviously, for the White Sox and the Yankees playing in their respective stadium, because then it would have made it more of that classic feel. Now it's almost like it's, I don't want to say video game-ish, because you'll be wrong to say, but it's just different from the way they're setting up. And I understand why they want to do it, because they want to make sure none of their players get sick. And I believe they're also going to be like back-to-back games. So it's not like it's, game 1, day off, game 3, and then 4, 5, 6. It's basically going to be back-to-back games.
Yeah. And that's a great point, that it's not going to have the mystique when you're not going into Yankee Stadium or just having jam-packed crowds no matter where they are. That takes a big chunk out of the whole thing, the whole feel, the whole intensity, the whole stress, the whole freak out of the postseason. So I would imagine that does work in the favor of teams like the White Sox, who are not used to being there, and hoping that they don't get freaked out just because they're playing a team that is extraordinary and as large as the New York Yankees. But that's a good point. The fanless piece of this is huge in the postseason.
There it is. Mike, have you guys some final words?
I just had a quick question for you, Mark. Not to shift gears, but to go back to the Bears-Eagles rivalry. Were you at the Fog Bowl in 1988?
I was not. I watched it. I was not in the business. I was in high school then, so I did watch it, and it was quite a fascinating, emotional experience. Obviously, with Buddy Ryan coaching the Eagles, and just I can't see what's going on. So yeah, no, that was quite a thing, man.
I remember watching that New Year's Eve day of 1988, and it was like, what the hell? What a spectacle.
Yeah.
See anything. And I know NFL Network did this timeline about the Fog Bowl, and they said when the Eagles got into Chicago, Buddy Ryan made the bus driver drive around Soldier Field and honk the horn like 3 times. just to let the Bears know that they were there. The Eagles were in town, so if you ever get a chance, check it out. But it was just a tidbit that, seeing a bus drive around honking the horn.
That's hilarious.
That sounds idiotic, but just
no, that rival. You're right. I mean, the Bears and the Eagles have always had a very unique rivalry, whether it was the Fog Bowl or some of the recent playoff games, which obviously the Eagles have gotten the much better of. But I like it when our two teams play each other. There's always something interesting.
Was the hatred between Buddy Ryan and Mike Ditka like really like that severe.
Oh yeah, man, that was a real thing, and Ditka. But I think it was more Buddy Ryan not liking Ditka as opposed to the reverse. I mean, Ditka obviously didn't like Buddy Ryan, but I think so Ditka was more or less in charge of the offense. So, and the
Right.
Bears were built on defense. So there's probably a little bit of jealousy that played in there from both guys, as in, it's Buddy Ryan's side of the ball. That is why the Bears did what they did during the 80s. But Buddy Ryan got like an ounce of the attention that Mike Ditka did. Look, fans love Buddy Ryan, and to this day, but he's always been behind Mike Ditka in terms of popularity, and Ditka turned into this superstar cult, not a cult hero. He was everybody's hero.
I think the thing was in the documentary I saw that they did play on the Fog Bowl documentary on NFL Network was Buddy Ryan was tight with the owner, George Halas. And I believe thought he was next in line to get the job, and then Mike Ditka ended up getting it, and Buddy stayed on at the defensive coordinator, which I think started that bitterness of, why didn't I get the job? And Mike Ditka did. And, Mike Ditka being the front man, head coach, just probably, started that whole feud thing and the bitterness on Buddy Ryan's behalf. But
yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right? When you enter a relationship with that sort of stunt to be in, it's bad. And then look, not a lot of players or coaches stood up to Mike Ditka, and Buddy Ryan was kind of a rebel. Him and Jim McMahon were the two that would not listen to Ditka and mouth off to him and just sort of ignore his advice. Buddy Ryan was like, "This is my side of the ball. Screw you. Get out of my way. You go run the offense. I don't need you over here." So yeah, there were some bloated egos, and quite frankly, it made for good entertainment around here. And especially since the Bears won, so then there was this sidebar soap opera with two outstanding coaches at the time. And it was definitely a sad day when Bears fans knew that Buddy Ryan was destined for something bigger, but it was a sad day for sure. Nobody, the Bears defense was never the same. They've been good, but they were never as dominant as when Buddy Ryan was running the 46 defense.
Well, I saw an interview with Mike Singletary, and I know he was like heartbroken to see Buddy go, and I think he was bitter because Buddy never told him, being the quarterback of the defense, that he was coming to Philly. But that was the rumor right after they won the Super Bowl against New England. The Buddy was on his way to Philly taking the head coaching job.
Yeah. It's memories and nostalgia. I mean, the things that those of us who've been around, at least to see this, I mean, it's fun to see the history when it comes to football and any major sports. Especially Chicago. I mean, Chicago has a rich history of this championship. So it's fun when we can sit around and talk. And I'm pretty sure we can talk for hours about it. But it's obviously Buddy has passed as well. His legend, and his legacy will always live in Philly as well, just like Jim Johnson. So I don't know. We hope that those days of what we used to see, where it's the Bears defense, Eagles defense, the domination, that it comes creeping back. We hope. But Mark, listen, thank you so much for coming on. Don't go anywhere because obviously we're going to come back talking some little Eagles football. But thank you for coming on. We really do appreciate it. We'll try to keep up with both coming up here, the Eagles and Bears coming up this week playing those Atlanta Falcons. And again, I could make a joke there, but I'll just leave that for the Bears to run away with. But we do thank you for coming on. Hopefully you'll come on next week. We'll rewrap and see what's going on with the Bears.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. It's been a blast.
Thank you, Mark. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
All right. So, with Mark Grote. I get it right eventually. Start with Mark. Obviously, it's been a lot of fun, and the irony, it's funny when he brought up that if Trubisky, of course, keeping up the way he's going, that Nick Foles get the call, and who knew, obviously, today would be the day that Nick Foles got the call, and not only did he get the call, but he answered the call by coming back and playing 30-6. So that was a lot of fun. Question, of course, for Buddy Ryan, who was like the most, that was awesome. Yeah, and with the Buck factor made me chuckle. You know, the way you said it, of course, today as well, listen to it again. So it's pretty interesting that as far as, you know, the perspective that Mark has, you know, what we know as far as fans and what it meant in that ball game, it's the shooting call that wasn't called, and that's just the way it was. Again, it's all part of history, so that's the fun part. That's what I love the most.
Well, yeah, it was a very enjoyable interview. I mean, you know, you look back on the can you hear me? Sorry. No, I said it was a very enjoyable interview with Mark as well, because so much history between Chicago and Philly, no matter what sport it is. I mean, it's, you know, Buddy and Mike Ditka, or the Fog Bowl, the double doink game, and, you know, Blackhawks Flyers in 2010, Stanley Cup, Cubs Phillies. But, you know, I think I'm just sitting here listening, and just the tidbit I said about the bus driving around Soldier Field and Buddy telling the bus driver to keep his hand on the horn. Just sounds asinine, but I could just see Buddy just trying to make an entrance. Just like, remember when the Arizona Cardinals hired him? He walked in and goes, "You got a winner in town." Yeah, just some of the stuff that would come out of his mouth was just comical. Like, how can you forget? You know, it's just good memories. Just unfortunate he couldn't win here. But wrote a lot of checks Eagles couldn't catch. But some great teams, though.
Exactly. Yep. But, well, pretty much to recap today, we started with, of course, D Gunn that came on with us, and then we had our halftime show, and of course, the halftime kind of tanked into the post-game show because, again, the Eagles end up with a tie, which basically you could say was a loss. Bad after we're done. I'm done here with the post-game conference was. I'm pretty sure I'll hear back from that. And, well, it was what it was. 23-23, it was bad. And if it makes it any better, right now the Cowboys are down 30-15. So, you know, it might make it a little bit better. The college team lost. So right now we're all in it for first place, as bad as the records are. So, Mike, thanks for coming on. Of course, we've had a long day, an enjoyable day, and we thank everyone again for coming on, the likes, the shares, you know, everybody doing their part, and we truly do appreciate it. So we shall do it again, of course, next week, episode 10 for next week, and we'll see. We'll come on again because, you know, just like we know at the last minute, but we'll see. So, Mike, have a safe drive home, of course. Again, we finish up on a good note, regardless of whatever kind of Eagles note that we left off on. But it was good. I guess let's continue going Birds as long as you possibly can, and we'll do it all again next week.
Yes, sir. It was a great couple interviews.
All right.
Shane the Birds couldn't reel in the today, and we'll try next.
Exactly. All right, everyone. Well, we'll see you all next week, and thanks for tuning in. We will see you shortly again. We'll see you all next week.